was born in 1965 in London to Greek Cypriot parents. How did that feel? Welcome to my channel, I'm Andri. Today we are going to chat all things Greek. How did it feel for me to grow up as an only child to Greek Cypriot parents? But before we get into all of that, I invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. Whilst you're there, you can ding-a-ling my bell and comments, thumbs up, and all of that is always very much appreciated. Okay, this is a big subject. So I have been asked to talk about growing up Greek, growing up as an only child. So this is a question, if you had asked me at different stages of my life, I would have answered very differently. At this stage of my life, I would say to you, having my Greek Cypriot heritage, I feel very privileged and I am very proud. Growing up as an only child, this is who I am. I don't know anything different. I don't know what it feels like to be any different. This is who I am. This is who I grew up as an only child most of my life. Let me answer a question that I often get asked about. What language do I think in? Again, that may be a simple question, but the answer for me is not as simple because it just depends on my environment. When I'm here amongst my family, with Rico and all of that, in Scotland, I think in English, I dream in English. When I'm in Cyprus, I may think in Greek because I'm using the Greek language more. So it changes for me. It's not a matter of I only think in English or I only think in Greek. I think in both languages. In the same way, I can naturally speak in both languages. I can go from one language to the other without thinking about it. I can swap and change and all of that. So when I'm with Greek English speaking people, that's how we speak. We speak in both languages. We don't just use the one language. We have preferences for certain words in one languages and certain preferences in words in other languages. That's how we converse. And if you sit and listen to people that are bilingual and they're together, you will quite often hear that they're using both languages. So I can't say to you, I just think in English, because I don't. Because when I'm in Cyprus, I don't just think in English because I am hearing the Greek language all the time. So I will think in Greek. And sometimes, for example, if I'm going to go in a shop, you know, you'll think about what you're going to say, what you're going to order, what you're going to do in Greek. So, you know, and you're dealing with Greek people. So whatever dreams you have that night might be Greek dreams. Does that make sense? It's very complicated. It's not one or the other. When I'm here, the majority of the time, I think in English, I speak in English, I dream in English. Okay, so it just depends on my environment. So that's how I think, dream, and all of that, and how the language goes. Growing up as a Greek Cypriot girl in London, did I feel different? Yes, I felt different. But I think most children do, because we are learning. Our brain is taking everything in, and I think now as an adult, I don't know if this is true, but as an adult now, I think all children feel different because we are all different, and we learn to adapt within our environment. So yeah, I don't think that's just because I was Greek I felt different. I honestly believe that every child feels different because they feel the differences of the environment. Also, something that's not quite often spoken about is we were made to feel different, not by our peers, but by our parents. We were always told that we were different because our parents wanted us to hold on to the culture and understand the culture and feel the culture, not forget the culture, and they reminded us on a daily that we were different. So of course we felt different. So it wasn't like our peers that were making us feel different. Our parents quite often told us all the time we were different. Andri, you're not going out with your friends. You don't do that. You're different. Andri, you don't have boyfriends. That's what people in this country do. We don't do that from Cyprus. Right? Okay, these are things people won't admit to. But this is what we were quite often told. You don't do this, you know, because you're Greek Cypriot. We don't do this in our country. So we were very aware that we were told on a daily that we were different by our parents. So no wonder we felt different. Our foods, I've spoken about this before, our foods were very different. And they were different. I really felt it really in foods. You know, my spoken language at home was always Greek. We did not speak English at home. We were never encouraged to speak English at home. We were always encouraged to speak Greek at home. The only time I spoke English was when I mixed with my cousins. We naturally spoke English. When I went to school, I only spoke Greek. I don't remember that, but I assume that because I didn't speak English at home. I was going to say I wasn't allowed to speak English at home, but it wasn't the done thing. When my mum spoke to me, she spoke to me in Greek. I answered back in Greek. If I was playing with my cousins, you know, our parents would always say, speak your language. We were always told to speak our language. So for us in our head, it was quite hard because we went to school, we spoke English, we were learning the English way of life. And then when we went home, it was the Greek way of life. And as a child, you needed to learn to separate those things. And that's why we were made to feel different. And to top it all, my Easter was always different to everybody else's Easter. Do you know what I mean? You know, it was Jesus and God and all of that, but why was my Jesus crucified at a different time? Do you know what I mean? It was trying to understand all of that. I'm not trying to belittle religion in any way, but you know, it took for me to become an adult at this age. It took a long time, and it took for me to kind of understand and accept everything and realize that yes, it's okay to be different. So that's what it's like to be, you know, growing up as a Greek Cypriot girl in London at that time. Also, what I realized was when I got older was that when my parents left Cyprus, they left with the old ways of Cyprus and they brought them with them here to the UK and stuck to them because, you know, they were going to stick to those ways that they were brought up with. Yet the ones in Cyprus, my cousins and all that, had all moved on. They had moved on in the same way the rest of the world had moved on. But what I noticed was people, Greek Cypriots that had left Cyprus and moved to the UK, stuck by those old ways and they hadn't moved on. The other thing is, you know, Greek Cypriot communities tended to stick together, so when people would come over from Cyprus, they would tend to go and find their relatives, their friends, and they would all move into the same sort of areas. My parents were very different. I did grow up, I was born in kind of a Greek Cypriot community. I think the place was called Turt Park Lane. I'm sure my cousin and my auntie will correct me, but so my mum and dad rented the top level of a terraced house. So the owners of the house lived on the lower level and we lived on the upper level. So it was a 2-storey terraced house and we had the whole of the upstairs and it was rented. I vaguely remember that, but I don't know if I remember it just through photographs or people talking about it. When I was about 5 years old, my dad bought a house that I grew up in, and that was in the northwest of London, Hendon, and that's where we lived. It was a beautiful big house. It was big rooms, high ceilings, bay windows. It was beautiful. Costa has revisited it and it's not in his head what I described anymore. Things change. I loved it. It was the place, it was my home and I really loved it. My mum and dad eventually sold that house and, well, they rented it for a while and then decided, well, I was kind of dealing with it over here and it was just getting too much, and they decided to sell it once they'd moved over. Well, they'd moved to Cyprus and then eventually sold it. But that's where I grew up, in the northwest of London. So and in the northwest of London, there wasn't a lot of Greek people. When I went to school, my high school, I can't think, was there anybody? I can't even think if there was. It was rare to see another Greek Cypriot person. My best friend was Greek, but she was Greek from Greece. And I suppose we were drawn to each other because we were both Greek, but it was rare to see another Greek child. Again, when I went to primary school, I went to primary school in the West End of London, and again there was one other Greek girl, again one of my friends. You know, do you have best friends when you're a child of that age? And I vaguely remember her name was Kristalla, that was her name. And so again, there wasn't a lot of Greeks in that area either, so I was never surrounded by a lot of Greek people. But in saying that, we always had visitors at the weekends. People would either be visiting us or we would be visiting other people, relatives, other Greek people, cousins, You know, we'd always be surrounded by other Greek people to, you know, embrace our own culture. Sometimes I didn't enjoy it. It just felt very claustrophobic. You know, you felt as if you were being watched by other Greek people and things like that. It was like you felt as if you always had to be in your best behaviour, because, you know, Greek girls didn't do this, that or the other, or say this, that and the other. But, you know, now as an adult you think, God, I took all that far too seriously, because look at me now. I know what I like when I like, say what I want and all of that. I don't give a monkeys anymore, and that's the good thing about being at this age. And it took me a long time to stop caring about what other people thought, because my upbringing was, don't do this, because what if somebody says this about you, and don't give us a bad name, and and don't do this and don't do that, which as children, as teenagers, we all do. We all experiment, because that's where we learn from. And so let the guilt go, people. So that's what it was like for me growing up as a Greek child in London. Yes, I did feel different, but I'm now at an age where I understand all that and I'm okay with it. growing up as an only child, again, I was an only child. That's how I grew up, as an only child most of the time. So I accepted it. I enjoyed it. You know, did I miss it as a child? No, because I didn't know any differently. That's who I was. That's how I was brought up. What I see with brothers and sisters is it's very much, oh, but I did this, so you should do that, and I did it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas it's me. So when my mum had dementia, there was only me. I took care of my mum. I didn't feel as if, oh, I did most of it because you should be doing so much of it. And do you know what I mean? It was just me. So I just got on with it. So, you know, but I look at it on the other end, because I am a mother of 3 sons, 3 brothers, and I am very much about, I always want my sons to love each other, to be there for each other. I always tell them that. I've always explained to them that, you know, their lives will all take different paths. That's just what it is. Other people will come into their lives, their wives, my daughter-in-laws, who I love dearly, who have been brought up differently. We all have to respect and accept each other's upbringings and the way we all are, but never ever fall out because you are brothers. You have one mum, one dad. And I have always said that to my sons, because I don't know what it's like to have, you know, a close brother or a sister or a close sister or anything like that I have grown up with. So, but I know as a mother, I want my sons to always be close and to always be there for each other, never to be jealous of each other, always to respect each other. Yes, they will disagree. Yes, you know, they'll have their, you know, disagreements. That's life. But always come together at the end of it, and that's the way I have brought up my sons, and I hope they take that forward too, to always be there for each other. So for me, I don't mind being an only child. I actually quite enjoyed it. I love to say I'm an only child. That's who I am. My dad always said to me, Andri, when we had you, that's it, we had everything we wanted. And that's what he always said to me. So they always made me feel very special, my mum and dad. So yeah, that's my thoughts on growing up Greek, growing up as an only child. So yeah, if you would like to see more videos from me, I'm gonna link one here, and if you're not already subscribed, just press the A right here. If you have any more questions about my culture or anything else, leave them in the comments below, and we'll make another video. Bye. Cheers.